Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Ultra Hope Girls podcast. We are so excited because today we're going to be talking about what we think the Myers-Briggs types for all of the characters in the first game are. Just so you all know, this podcast is going to spoil
the entirety of Trigger Happy Havoc.
We're so excited you're joining us here today, and we can't wait to get into the episode.
I'm Maddie.
I'm Marin.
And I'm Caroline.
And we're the Ultra Hope Girls.
1, 2.
Welcome to the Danganronpa podcast.
You're on the threshold of an amazing episode. Showtime.
Hey guys!
Hey!
Welcome back to...
I'm so excited for this episode.
I know.
Me too.
Just some background for you all out there. Marin and Maddie and I, when we were in middle school and high school, we were obsessed with Myers-Briggs. Like, we know so much about it, it's absurd. The Myers-Briggs personality test is a personality test that breaks each person's personality into 4 separate letters.
So the first letter in Myers-Briggs is E versus I, which stands for extrovert versus introvert. An extrovert tends to get their energy from other people. They tend to be outgoing and sociable, comfortable in groups, whereas an introvert tends to get their energy from their kind of inner world, and they might prefer to be alone in general.
So the next letter is sensing/observant or intuitive, and I'm going to quote the Myers-Briggs Foundation's website. Sensing perception pays attention to details and current realities, while intuition, N, perception pays attention to meanings, patterns, and future possibilities. So in this category, you could be either an S or an N.
For the next letter, we've got T or F, which relates to how people make decisions. T stands for thinking, and F stands for feeling. T's tend to make decisions based on logic and facts, whereas F's tend to make decisions based on their feelings.
And the last letter is either a J or a P, and J's tend to be more organized and think in a more black and white manner, whereas P's are a little bit more flexible, a little more spontaneous, and they tend to think more in the gray area. J stands for judging, and P stands for perceiving. All right, so our first one, I guess, is Sayaka, yeah.
Yeah.
So for Sayaka, I have ESFP.
Let's see. Me too!
Yes! Because ESFP is the performer.
Yes!
Yeah. Actually, on Marin's suggestion, I went to 16personalities.com and kind of looked up what the combinations are. The ESFP on that website is the entertainer.
Yep.
Yeah. I think, Maddie, do you also have ESFP?
So it's funny because I actually don't. I had ISFP because I think Sayaka has a quieter side, and I can kind of see her being more of an introvert than an extrovert. ISFP is called the adventurer, and so it says that an ISFP person is spontaneous, colorful, creative, but can sometimes be unpredictable. I have a quote from there that says ISFPs enjoy connecting with others and have a certain irresistible charm. But can also become self-centered and act with selfishness, manipulation, and egoism. And so I think that kind of describes her really well because of, what she ended up doing, trying to frame Makoto and whatnot. She definitely has that kind of manipulative side.
Maddie, I agree with you, I think, actually. Yeah.
So the reason that I put E instead of I was because I think that she's a quiet extrovert. Because, she walks right up to Makoto and says, hey, don't I know you from somewhere? She's not, really hesitant to meet people, and she doesn't, really hold back her opinion. She's just more quiet about how she goes about it. I think that the character description you found is very accurate, but I don't know, something about her just made me feel like she was an extrovert.
I will also say, when figuring out her type, the I and the E was actually the toughest category for me to figure out.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's okay that we don't agree on that.
Absolutely.
But yeah, are we ready to rock and roll?
I love it.
Rock and roll.
Rock and roll. Am I right, folks?
Loves rock and roll. Okay, so I love Leon. I'm sorry. You all know that. For no particular good reason. But what's funny is I actually had ESFP for Leon. ESFP, the entertainer. You did?
Yeah, I did as well.
I have ISFP. Because I think he is what Maddie described more than Sayaka is, in my opinion.
Really? Okay.
Yes, because he is like really cool and laid back, but he's not like Sayaka, like Marin said at the very beginning, where she's like, "Hey, buddy, middle school." You know, he is like, "Oh, hey, man, like, what's up?" And he's very cool, but he doesn't seek attention outside of that. Like ESFPs are constantly like seeking attention to put on a show, and he is not like that at all. I think he's an introvert.
But he wants to be a rock star. Like
He does, though.
That's his goal, is to entertain people.
Yeah,
well,
he
I will
wants to be
say,
famous.
you guys, like most actors and performers out there are introverts. That is true.
He does like the limelight, though. I do think he does. And I also found some from 16 Personalities a little bit more about the entertainer. I found some things that I think were just spot on for him. It says that they are often so focused on immediate pleasures that they neglect the duties and responsibilities that make those luxuries possible. That's a quote from that site. And so that made me just think of how he literally never goes to baseball practice. You know, he's not the most responsible person. And that just totally made me think of him.
Yeah, there was a line from that site that said, "Life is never boring around them." And that was what really made me pick him, because he is constantly changing everything he wants to do.
Yeah, and I think also, again, like same with Sayaka, ironically, I had the toughest time with I and E with him. The rest of it, I was pretty sure about, because like he definitely acts on his feelings. He's definitely an S. Like he's definitely is focusing on what's happening right now kind of person. And then 100% a P. And so like, because ISFPs can actually lean toward being more outgoing, it's a little difficult. It was difficult for me to kind of determine.
Right. I think also I's and E's are hard, because I think a lot of people get stuck around the idea that introverts have to be quiet and extroverts have to be loud, and that's not the case, which made it a little bit challenging for some of these even that we haven't talked about.
All right, so next is Chihiro. I had a
Chihiro.
very, very hard time with
Okay,
Chihiro.
me too.
I kind of did as well.
But I have a very strong stance on why I picked the type that I picked for him. I think Chihiro is an ISFJ. And here is why. I'm going to read you a quote from the 16 Personalities website that made me be like, this is Chihiro. And my partner helped me out with this, so he definitely backed me up in my thoughts. Though sensitive, defenders, which is what they're called defenders, have excellent analytical abilities. Though reserved, they have well-developed people skills and robust social relationships. And though they are generally a conservative type, ISFJs are often receptive to change and new ideas. As with so many things, people with the ISFJ personality type are more than the sum of their parts, and it is the way they use their strengths that defines who they are. I was debating between like T and S and N, and with him, because it's like a certain combination of those letters wouldn't work, but this combination for me still captures the analytical side of the programmer, but also the emotional side of him.
I like that a lot, actually. My the one that I had for him was INFP, which is the mediator, but I wasn't so sure about it.
I don't think Chihiro is an INFP. I don't think he's an N. You know what I mean? Like, I think he's really sweet and caring, and in a way can see the bigger picture, but I think that a lot of what he does, like as far as like choosing to change himself and making the AI for them, like I think a lot of that is like him taking the facts of what's happening right now and then moving forward with what is happening.
So what's interesting is I actually had an N as well. I put Chihiro as an INTJ. I really liked your description, Caroline.
Yeah.
I know, Maddie, that's
my
type. I liked your description, Caroline. The reason that I would support an N over an S is that debatably, by making that AI, he was thinking of the bigger picture. He wasn't thinking of just himself in those moments like, oh, I hope I can use this computer, because he was making an AI of himself that he didn't need to be there to use. But yeah, I liked your description a lot, actually. That Chihiro was the one that I had the hardest time with by far. The only thing I liked about INTJ was that they have a plan for everything, which really reminded me of that AI, because he had a plan even if he wasn't there to help.
All right.
All right.
Up next.
We got Mondo.
Oh,
I had
yeah.
a really hard time with Mondo.
I was very surprised with my result.
Oh no,
I got ENFJ, which is mine. And I was like, huh, because what I did when I did these characters is I went column by column, and then after all of the things were filled in, I looked at what I had gotten. This was a surprise, but ENFJs, we take on the emotions of other people around us, and I kind of think that he did that in that with Chihiro's like really strong emotion to try and improve, like he kind of felt that, and that was too much to handle. And he is an inspiring and charismatic leader, like as the leader of a biker gang. He obviously knows how to like mesmerize a group, and yeah, like he just kind of takes control of the room when he walks in, and so I kind of see it. I don't know, I'm curious what you guys got.
I had a hard time with Mondo actually, but hearing your description of that, I really like that description. I think that might fit well. I had him down as definitely an FJ, but the first two letters I struggled with, and I thought that he might be more of an introvert than an extrovert. He's very assertive and he can be like loud, but I don't necessarily think he's an extrovert, because I feel like I could see him being kind of a more like lone wolf kind of guy. And so I didn't know, I was flip-flopping that, and I actually didn't like really choose one for him because I was having such a hard time. But I also really liked your description. You're the ENFJ, right, is what you said. And that, I believe the label for that, according to 16 Personalities, is ironically the protagonist.
So I have a little bit of a different take on this. I have him as an ESFP. Let me explain myself. So I have him as an S, and I was pretty sure about that because S's tend to be the kind of people who are often based on vocal promises. They are the people who listen to words and take them at face value. And so since his character, a lot of his character is based around like promises, words exchanged, words made, that was why I leaned S to him. I was also debating between J and P, but the reason why I ended up picking P is as a whole, ESFJ didn't feel right to me. He's a little bit of a performer, like he like in a more masculine way. Like he puts on a mask of like what he is and like constantly seeks attention. And that's a big part of the ESFP description. Yeah, that's why I said that for him.
I think that the S is interesting for the N. I'm trying to remember why I picked N, but like I don't think that it's a mask. I think that is who he is, like that aggressive, like overly masculine person is his personality.
I wonder though, because is it kind of in between? Is it not necessarily a mask, but it's also not his authentic self? Because we do understand that, like, we do realize that he is trying so hard to become like the strongest man that he can, and like that's so important to him because he's trying to escape his own weakness, we learn about in chapter 2, like. And I wonder if it is kind of not necessarily putting on a show, but trying to overcompensate for a weakness that he feels he has.
Another thing I will just throw in here, I think N and S are a difficult combo to pick because it is so based on someone's thought process.
Right.
And sometimes people don't show what their thought process is. But I could also, so meeting halfway for a second, I was just thinking, I could really see him being an ENFP. Because ENFP, the description is the campaigner. They tend to be leaders that people follow because they're very like attractive and charismatic, and they like put on not a show. I say that because he can be kind of like, I'm Mondo. But I think that might be a good way to meet halfway.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, I think that's
He's
good.
an enigma.
Oh my God, I know.
What a mystery,
He was hard for me to figure out.
All right, I think next is technically Taka. If we don't all agree on this, I'm going to be very surprised.
Do we want to just go around and say what we had? Because I think we know what he is.
Marin, oh no.
I'm worried. You made me worried that I'm going to get it wrong.
There's no right or wrong. It's all good. It's everyone's personal takes. But
I would be very surprised.
I said ESTJ.
Me too.
Okay.
What? Wait, no, I didn't say that.
He is such an ESTJ. He is the textbook definition of an ESTJ.
So the ESTJ is the executive, and I can see that, but I said ESFJ because I think he's an F. I mean, personally, even just seeing his like friendship with Mondo and how he was just so like loyal and so like dedicated and was just crushed after like what happened to Mondo, like I can see him being an F. But also the ESFJ is the console, and for that personality, what I got from 16 personalities is responsible, altruistic, leadership is really important. And I also found, this is a quote that I found on there that I was like, oh my goodness, it's literally Taka. And it says, people with console personality types will base their moral compass on established traditions and laws, upholding authority and rules. What do you guys think?
So he, to me, is such a T. Because that thing with Mondo is the only time that he ever like really flops to an F. And if you see in the scenes right after that, like he loses his mind in the next scene. And I
That's
think
true.
that that's because for the first time, the ultimate moral compass didn't act morally. But throughout, like when we had our episode where we picked people for each other, we all eliminated Taka because he only saw in black and white. And
That's
that is
true.
a T thinker to a T to be.
That is true. That is very true. Also, I just think it's hilarious how he is like the ultimate moral compass, right? In the anime, he's the ultimate hall monitor.
I forgot about that. Oh my god.
Oh my goodness.
That's
Yeah, they
so
really
funny.
flip
So funny.
everything.
All right, are we
Yeah.
ready to move on?
Yeah.
Okay, Hifumi. This is a little weird for me. I'm not gonna lie to y'all.
I had a hard time with this one too.
Okay, I got one. And I have a defense for it.
Okay.
I had ESFJ. And my reason being, ESFJs, okay, so something, listeners, if you don't already know this about the three of us, we do not like Hifumi. We are not fans of Hifumi. But if we
I don't
take
think a lot of
that
people
out, yeah, if we take that out, Hifumi is extraordinarily caring and he is social. He talks to people all the time. And like, if you take away the fact that he's kind of disgusting, he would be popular. He's always eager to help. Like, I mean, think about how he is with Celeste. Like, yeah.
That is so funny. The reason I laughed when you said ESFJ is because, I mean, like I said, I had a hard time with this too, so I don't know. But I literally had all the exact opposite letters. I had an INTP as like a
Oh.
question mark one because I
Oh my
wasn't
goodness.
sure. And I was like, so correct me if I'm not pronouncing this right, but the website says the INTP is the logician, not sure, like logic-based inventiveness and creativity. It says on there a unique perspective and vigorous intellect. And like, he actually can be kind of smart. He does point some things out during the trials that people are all like, huh, that's a good point. Like, he made the connection with the things with the handbooks in chapter 2, and like he says some things that are kind of smart sometimes. It's terrible that that's like my only reasoning for like, oh, he could be this, because occasionally he is smart. But he's also creative. Like, his art is super important to him, and like I can kind of see that working. But that's so funny that we literally had all the exact opposite letters. I feel
That's
like
very funny.
it's hard because Hifumi is just a total caricature of a person, and
Yeah.
so it's hard to find like a genuine personality for him.
So I had ISFJ. So I had the same as Marin except an introvert. And the only reason I said, I think he is an introvert. But ISFJs tend to also still be like, they still establish social connections most of the time. Like, some of them can be kind of quiet, but like they still have that. And I said J because it's very clear he sort of has like a very like a sense of duty that I think, like, especially like taking on the trash person responsibility, which he is a trash person. So that was really but yeah. All right, Celeste. Oh man,
Celeste.
I had the toughest time. I was split on almost every letter with her.
Really?
Wow.
Yes.
I actually had trouble with the individual letters too, but once I kind of settled on one and I read the description from 16 Personalities, I was like, oh, this is Celeste. I said ESTP, and that on the 16 Personalities website is called The Entrepreneur, And it talks about adaptability, flexibility. It says out of all the 16 personality types, this is the one that most loves risk-taking, gambling, enjoys drama, passion, and pleasure. And it also says, there's a quote, to entrepreneurs, it makes more sense to use their own moral compass than someone else's. Rules were made to be broken.
Okay, so I had ISTJ, and the reason that I don't agree with yours, Maddie, before I go into mine, is that you mentioned adaptability, and I know throughout the first couple cases, she's like, we just have to adapt. Like, those who can't adapt will die. But then she says before her death that she was lying about that. She was like, of course that doesn't make sense. Like, of course we have to get out of here. Like, that's all, like, not true. And so she's not really willing to adapt, which is why I don't know that I agree with yours. For me, I said ISTJ because that group of people, they're practical and they're fact-minded, which is a lot of times what gamblers are. Like, I think a misconception about gambling is that gamblers are taking risks. They are, but they also are very skilled. Like, those players are counting cards. They know the odds of them winning. It is all a very mathematical science. And, like, there is luck in it, but those players aren't just taking risks and hoping for the best.
About the adaptability thing, though, I almost think that her, her manipulativeness and her lying about that and then becoming the Blackened and trying to get out, I almost feel like that is a form of adaptability, because she's like, we're in this killing game. The only way to get out of the killing game is to do this. So I'm going to do this. But as far as the, I can't see her as an ISTJ just because I think she has a charisma that ISTJs don't typically have.
I'm going to agree with that, Maddie, especially like the charisma thing that you said. So, okay, hear me out. I said, okay, I had a really tough time. I was between E and I a lot. I was between N and S a lot. I had the T and the P pretty solidly in there because I think that Ps tend to have like a sort of like, their flexibility makes them attractive to people depending on what the other letters are, and I think that fits her very well. So I was pretty sure on the last two. I was debating, I think the biggest debate I had was between E and I. I went with INTP, and let me just read you, this is why I picked this type. This type is called the Logician. The Logician personality type is fairly rare, making up only 3% of the population, which is definitely a good thing for them, as there's nothing they'd be more unhappy about than being common. Logicians pride themselves in their inventiveness and creativity, their unique perspective, and vigorous intellect. Poker is a numbers game, but it's also a people game in a lot of ways. And like, I think part of me feels like she needs to have the big picture analysis in order to be good at poker, especially if she has the N combined with the T. That covers both of those things. So she could still be like, since she's a logical, analytical thinker, there's that color there with also the intuitive part of that.
What's interesting is the ISTP, right? That's what you guys were talking about?
INTP.
If that's the Logician, the one I picked is the Logistician. And I just think that's a little funny because we literally, that is such a small difference in personality. For me, it's the more analytical, and like you said, it's the more personal. But I do feel actually really strongly that she's an introvert. That was never a question to me. I just felt like she just didn't seem to need people, and that's not like introverts are angry, like cold, alone people, but like she didn't need people to be happy, and a lot of extroverts struggle when they don't have people to be with. And like,
that's true.
Yeah, that's kind of where I was at.
She's very independent.
Another thing that also drew me to the INTP, where I'm at with that, is I have an ex-girlfriend who was an INTP, and she very much like, in a weird way, like the aura reminds me of Celeste. She's not Celeste at all, but like that's kind of part of what influenced that. Like when I was on the fence, I was like, INTP, I think just I have to go with that.
I like that. I like that a lot, actually.
All right, so next is R.I.P. Sakura.
Sakura, queen.
Love of my life. Actually, Maddie's love of her life.
Okay, I actually had one that I was pretty confident about. I'm curious to see if you guys got the same thing. But I put Sakura as an INFJ, which is Caroline's type.
Me too! I have her as an INFJ.
Yes.
I'm very close. I had her as an ISFJ.
Okay.
ISFJ is the defender, which we talked about a little bit earlier, but I thought the description of the defender fits Sakura really, really well. It says, very dedicated and warm protectors, always ready to defend their loved ones. I feel like that's Sakura.
The reason I picked INFJ, which is the advocate, is because the description for that was quiet and mystical, yet very inspiring and tireless idealist.
That's true as
And
well.
Sakura, like between the S and the end, I think Sakura thinks very big picture. Like she has had a dream for a long time and it is family based for generations. And I think her thinking spans a lot further beyond now, especially considering her death. You know, she is not thinking then and now. She is thinking for the group, like in the long term, you know, how will this affect?
I also want to say, like, being an INFJ, for a very long time, I didn't think I was an INFJ because on websites and stuff, they tend to be described as like just very special gems of human beings that are like have such a unique combination of like caring but also drive, and like they're very just mysterious in a weird way, and that also speaks to me for Sakura. I think that, oh man, wow, I love her. I'm honored to be in
I
the
love her
same
too.
like
I can see
category.
that.
Maddie, you and Caroline have to date now.
Yeah! Woo! All right, guys, we're going to be back with more Myers-Briggs right after the break. All right, so we're back, baby. Let's go ahead and talk about Junko.
Yeah.
We're doing, just so everybody knows, we're doing Mastermind Junko, not Fashionista Junko.
Yes, and we're skipping Mukuro just because we don't really know anything about her at all, so we can't really personality type her.
All right. So for Junko, I did ESTP, and I actually have a very big defense for that. But yeah, do you want me? I'll just go into it, I guess. So ESTPs are smart, energetic, and very perceptive people who enjoy living on the edge. There is a quote in 16 Personalities that says, "Life is either a daring adventure or nothing at all," and that to me is Junko, because Junko is smart and very perceptive, like very much understands what's going on and knows how to control people. She is energetic. I mean, think about all of her different personalities, and she enjoys living on the edge. I mean, she has created a crazy scenario just to try and cause people pain. And like that, yeah, like she's said before that like living a life where it's boring and nothing's happening isn't worth anything.
So you said ESTP, which is the entrepreneur, and that's actually the personality I chose for Celeste, but I can see it working for Junko as well. I mean, me personally, I actually chose ENTJ for Junko, which is the commander. It talks about charisma and confidence, but it also says commanders are also characterized by an often ruthless level of rationality, using their drive, determination, and sharp minds to achieve whatever end they've set for themselves. They can be dominant, relentless, and unforgiving, and they have a core tenet of ultimate victory, which I think describes Junko very, very well. I mean, considering she's the mastermind of the whole thing, obviously she has that kind of dominant, relentless, and unforgiving, I think just describes her perfectly. You know, ultimate despair, ultimate victory. For her, that is despair. She also is really, really smart. She does have a really sharp mind. She is really analytical, and she will stop at nothing to get what she wants.
So I actually have the same one as Maddie. And the reason why I picked S or N over S for her is because the NT personality pairing, we've talked about this earlier in the episode with somebody else, is able to have that like very objective analytical mind, but they have the big picture thinking that I think it would take to make something like this happen. And I think J for her, only because I was between INTP and INTJ, and I went with INTJ again because without that level of like being able to like execute a plan, I don't think that this could have worked in a weird way. I mean, but Maren, I have to say, like, after hearing your argument, I agree with a lot of points that you brought up. So I understand why you said what you said.
No, I really like the one you guys came up with. The reason that I did the SP combination is because for me, I took Junko to be a character who is very willing to make changes along the way. But I really like actually your points. And Maddie, especially your first description that said like the drive to victory, like that to me was really strong.
All right, so next, why don't we go ahead and jump right into doing Hero? Just because I think he's probably objectively our least favorite out of the people who end up surviving. So
I actually just
Probably.
realized that I didn't even write anything about him. Wow. Oh,
well,
I didn't even come up with his type.
I said ENFP.
Okay, I said ISFP, which is the adventurer, which is something we were talking about with Sayaka as well as Leon, but I just don't know.
So I didn't come up with one for him, I'm realizing. That shows you how much I like Hero.
Oh, no.
But I would definitely, between I and E, I would pick E. He seems like a very much like a person who wants to connect with other spirits. Like, not to make a joke about his profession, but yeah.
I'll just say, I think the FP Maddie and I agree on. The only reason I said N is because, again, for ESFP versus ENFP, like the descriptions, I felt, I don't know, like there's something about him needing to be able to see the bigger picture, even though he's kind of an idiot. Ns aren't necessarily smart either. You know what I mean? Like one isn't smarter than the other or better than the other. But I think that he is an N in the way where, like, when he is thinking about things, he's obviously thinking in big, broad, abstract terms because that's what he does.
I would also say a lot of people who are, not that he's religious, but a lot of people who are more religious or more spiritual tend to be N's over S's because you're always thinking of that other reality, that other dimension. And he is the one who is constantly thinking about stuff like that.
Okay, so why don't we do Makoto?
Okay. I had him as an INFP, and I was thinking it might also be possible that he's an ENFP, but I kind of wasn't sure for him.
I had ENFP.
I had ENFJ, but I was between P and J, so I am more likely to agree with Marin.
The reason that I picked P instead of J, I actually kind of wanted to pick J for him just because it's the protagonist. I was like, come on, that's perfect. But I don't think he's a J. I think he's a P. He is very disorganized. He doesn't lock his door. I was gonna say he's like, he does not know how to keep organized, and so I really just don't think he's a J. And the ENFP type is the campaigner, which is also a type of protagonist, and the description for an ENFP is an enthusiastic, creative, and sociable free spirit who can always find a reason to smile. And that is Makoto. I mean, the ultimate hope. He is smiling constantly. I mean, he's like a bubble of joy. And like, yeah.
I agree with that.
I agree with you, Marin. I think we can. I've changed my tune. I think he's
you know, is if this works as like kind of a transition, I actually chose ENFP for Hina as well for those very same reasons that you just said, Marin.
I also picked ENFP for Hina. And what's interesting about Hina is, let's talk about Hina and Sakura as a pair. Something interesting about Myers-Briggs is that good relationships tend to have the same inner like letters and different outside letters, because that means your communication style is the same, and your outsides can complement one another and kind of help to like keep each other calm, keep each other like progressing. And what's interesting is the type that I picked for Sakura fits that for Hina if she is an ENFP, since I have Sakura as an INFJ. So for Hina, I mean, it's almost the same reason that I had for Makoto. She is enthusiastic, creative, and a sociable free spirit who can always find a reason to smile.
Mine is very different because, as we've said on this podcast before, Marin has a friend who reminds me a lot of Hina, and I happen to know her Myers-Briggs personality type. And I went through and I made sure I agreed that it matched Hina, but I think I do. I have my reasoning. I think she is an ESFJ. I think that she is an S over an N because she is very much like her positivity. I think Makoto's positivity comes from hope and comes from a future, and hers is like, we're never gonna like improve if we keep acting like this. We need to like just, you know, like be happy, like don't, you know what I it's like different. It's from a different vein for me. I also am very strongly, I think she is a J. I don't think that you can be an athlete and not have a very specific J schedule. Like she's always at breakfast early, if not on time. She's always, you know what I mean? So I do not really think she's a P. I think she could be an ENFJ, definitely, but I do not think that she is a P, in my opinion.
So the reason that I thought she was a P over a J is like, I disagree about being an athlete and needing to have a schedule. I know a lot of athletes who do not have a schedule. And for some of her free time events, because I hung out with Hina a couple times, she was like, hey, you want to like go run in the halls right now? And it's like, that wasn't planned. She wasn't going to do that anyways. She just kind of went for it and like went off. For the S and the N, I kind of see what you're saying, but I guess I just don't think it's that different of a vein. She's always like, we just have to stick together and we'll make it out in the end. And like that to me is thinking big picture, versus right here and now, like these are the facts, someone just died, like we need to be scared, versus it's a fine, like we just gotta like work together.
I agree that she's a P more so than a J. Even though she is an athlete, I think that she just has such a spontaneous streak and she's just such a free spirit that that is more kind of an important side of her rather than being like disciplined. So
especially also with the donuts, because if she like if she was sticking to rules, I don't think that would be a huge part of her traits.
She breaks the midnight rule at one point, or the no going out at nighttime rule at one point to go to the cafeteria and get donuts. I'm pretty sure.
Me too, girl, honestly.
Honestly relatable.
I also, my reason why I picked S as well is Sakura being an N. And I think that when it's revealed that Sakura's the traitor, Hina's like, it's okay. Like she is very, like, in the way she reacts in that moment is very like, and I only remember this from the anime, so I don't know how it differs from the game again. And I have that disadvantage when we talk about these things, especially later, but it's like, Sakura's over here like, Hina, you don't understand, like this, I feel terrible that I've hurt you, and this is like bigger than just like forgiving me. And I think that is the first time in their relationship that we see that difference in the way that they think. Those are my thoughts.
Do I want to talk about Toko next?
Okay, so Toko, I am a little worried. I mean, not worried. I don't think I'm going to have the same one as you guys. This was one that I had a really tough time with, a really, really tough time. And the description of the person that I ended up with, it differs a little bit from Toko. But Toko, I got ISFJ. And the reason that I got that, the character description says, very dedicated and warm protectors, always ready to defend their loved ones. And for Toko, she is not warm. I mean, that was the biggest problem I had with this description, is she comes across like she's more like jittery, like you've taken a bowl of water and like I don't know, put a whisk through it than warm. But like she's always ready to defend her loved ones. Her loved one is Byakuya. I mean, she would defend him till the day she dies. And that was kind of how I got to that.
Yeah, this one I really had to go letter by letter. And I really could not find an overall description that felt right for her, really, in any of the categories. I'm not going to lie. Because she's definitely an introvert. She's definitely an S. She's definitely an F. She makes her decisions completely based on her feelings. And, like, she is definitely a J. But honestly, like, yeah, that's all.
I disagree about her being an S. I actually put her down as an INFJ, which, Caroline, that's your personality type, which I was like, that's so perfect, because Caroline is Toko. But INFJ, the advocate, she's reserved, she is, but she's also creative and imaginative, and that is a description of the advocate, as well as I think just matches an N rather than an S in general more, just because she's a novelist, she's a creative writer, you know, she goes into like these inner worlds and like kind of just creates those things. And I just, for me, that feels more of an N than an S. I just thought it was so perfect. I was like, I actually went through the letters and I was like, okay, I think she's an INFJ. And then I was like, wait, that's Caroline's personality type. That just felt so perfect to me. But there's also something it said on 16 Personalities where it said something about like they can pursue their passion to an extent where they end up neglecting their self-care and end up stressed and exhausted. And I was like, oh my goodness. Not only does that really describe Toko, I mean, she literally
Not only does that really describe Toko, but it really describes me.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. Like that's I think it speaks to a lot that you two have in common. And I think obviously you are like a much more stable individual and a much nicer person. But yeah, I do think you have a lot in common. And for me, that description matched Toko really well for me.
So I'll just say that, so I was between INFJ and ISFJ for her. And the reason why I went with ISFJ is I literally was like, okay, all the positive things these websites are going to say will not fit her because she is just so a bundle of weaknesses. And so I went to the strengths and weaknesses tab and compared the INFJ and ISFJ weaknesses. And here is ISFJ. So hear these out. I'm skipping the first one because it doesn't fit her at all. It's humble and shy. She's not humble. She is shy. Takes things too personally, represses their feelings, overloads themselves, reluctant to change, too altruistic.
Yeah, maybe not that last one, but those middle ones, yeah, for sure.
The reason I picked S over N, I mean, N is that big picture, and I just don't think she sees that. I think that she's very much the here and now. What is she feeling right now, and how is she going to act on that? I don't think she's like, over the past few months, Byakuya has been a little mean to me. You know, she's like, oh my goodness, right now he is speaking to me, and like this is great. Yeah, so I think she's very much a here and now, especially actually because of her alter personality. Because she can't live big picture because she's missing almost half of her memories. I don't think that being an N is an option for her.
But hey, interesting conversation. She's definitely a toughie.
Yeah.
And
I wonder
I'm looking forward to playing Ultra Despair Girls because I want to know more about her.
All right.
Go ahead. Let's do Kyoko. And so Maddie, since you are Kyoko.
Sure. So for Kyoko, I am very similar to her. Like I got her on the personality test and I relate to her a lot. And I think that we are very similar, but I don't think we are the exact same personality type. I ended up choosing for her one letter off from what I am. So I am an INTJ, which is the architect. And for her, I chose ISTJ, which is the logistician. Not to be confused with the logician, which is like, that bothers me that those words are so similar, but there's some key differences. And it says they are practical and fact-minded individuals whose reliability cannot be doubted. And I think that's huge for her. You know, it says they have sharp fact-based minds. They prefer autonomy and self-sufficiency to reliance on someone or something. And that also describes her because she's fiercely independent. She rarely ever like talks to other people about what she's finding, like over the course of an investigation or throughout the game. Like she's kind of doing her own thing and she's extremely competent. She knows what she's doing. And she often comes in and rescues the trial and just says like, here's this evidence, here's what this means. I mean, absolutely introvert for her, for sure. Absolutely a T. I mean, she's so logical. She's so like, you know, pushes down her emotions like head over heart completely. I struggled in the S and N for her because she is so intuitive, but she also, I think, knows that intuition can go wrong and you need to be like facts in order to get stuff right.
So I agreed. I got ISTJ.
I just want to point out actually that wow, this is rough. So I picked INTJ for
That's
her.
Me.
And Ns tend to be the people who take what is given to them and see the possible options.
That is true. She does think, like, she says this at some point, like, you need to examine every single possibility and then be able to narrow it down to the one that's true. And that
is such an N to go from big to little.
That's true.
That's built the opposite way.
I mean, that's true. And that's the way that I think as well. I mean, when I'm solving these murders, when I'm going through Danganronpa and playing them, I think, okay, what is every possible scenario that could have occurred? And then I think through each one of them and to narrow it back down. So yeah, going from large to small, kind of big picture to narrowing in, maybe, yeah, that's how I work. And I mean, I'm an INTJ, like I can speak to that. Yeah, you might be right about that.
All right. Our king, the man of the hour, All right. Ayakaya.
Also,
So-
fun fact, his last name, Togami, means three kings. And his first name, I'm pretty sure, Byakuya, means white knight.
So for Byakuya, I am pretty confident after
I'm also
hearing
confident.
some side comments that we are not going to have the same thing.
Oh,
But I had ESTJ. And reason being, ESTJs are the executive. And the description is that they're excellent administrators and they are unsurpassed at managing things or people. And that is the same type that I gave to Taka. And Caroline, you also gave to Taka. He, I think, is a phenomenal person, like people manager. I think that he knows how to work people. I actually felt really confident on this. The thing that I thought we would disagree about was the I and the E. Mostly because that took me a long time to pick between, but I did go with the E because I think he's a quiet extrovert. I don't think he's an introvert. I don't think he needs people as friends, but I think he needs people to lead. I think that he requires being ahead of people, and you can't be ahead of people without having other people there. So that was kind of why I pushed for E. But I think you guys are probably going to say N. Yeah, I'm curious.
Yeah, I'll just say, so I was split on I and E as well. I had the toughest time figuring that one out. I ended up going with INTJ. I was thought he would either be an INTJ or an ENTJ.
Me again.
Yeah, because you were saying how, yes, he needs people to control, but he also needs to know how to control them in a way that is able to be sort of like malleable in a way that I think the ends can see the possible opportunities of ways to play that out.
I actually definitely think I would change to an end, especially after discussing today. Not to cut you off, sorry, but I think I would go with ENTJ now, just because I do think he's playing the big game. I think that he is very much in the future, seeing how he can affect this in the future, like getting back outside to his family, like that. I think is a huge part of how he acts, and finishing the game, winning the game. He's not thinking right here and now, and so I would definitely change to the N.
So I also want to just read from the INTJ personality thing. This is literally why I picked INTJ over ENTJ, because I was so in the middle. And again, it was late and I was like, I need to go to bed. I cannot toil over this anymore. But here is literally, I read this to my partner who worked on this with me, and he goes, that's Byakuya. Here is the description. It can be lonely at the top. Being one of the rarest personality types and being among the most capable people, architects know this all too well. It can be difficult for architects to find people who can keep up with their nonstop analysis of things. People with this personality type are imaginative, yet decisive, ambitious, yet like their privacy, curious about everything, but remain focused.
I want to kind of jump in and say that as an INTJ myself, there are some things that I mean, reading the description of the INTJ, the architect, on that website, obviously, because that's my personality, I related to it a lot. There are definitely things that I can see fitting with Byakuya on there as well. And one of it is talking about how like some social norms and customs and like small talk or like that kind of thing feel like a waste of time. And that I think could probably explain some of his bluntness and some of his coldness and just how he just sometimes just seems really mean. I'm not mean. Like I very much like don't think I'm a mean person. But I actually, for Byakuya, picked the same one as I picked for Kyoko, which is one letter off from mine, which is the ISTJ. I picked the Logician because now that I hear you guys talking about it, though, I can definitely see the N and I can definitely see the INTJ fitting for him. I think he is an introvert. I mean, Marin, I like a lot what you said about him needing other people because he needs to lead them. And I think that might be very, very true, but I don't necessarily think that means he's an extrovert. So the reason I picked, I actually wasn't sure at first about picking the same personality type for Kyoko and Byakuya. But in hindsight, I kind of like it because I think that in a lot of ways, Byakuya and Kyoko are kind of two sides of the same coin, but the key difference between them is in what they value. And I think that for Kyoko, she values honesty and truth over everything, and that gives her kind of her own unique kind of personal integrity. But I think for Byakuya, he values himself, he values his success and his survival, and then that makes him kind of almost be like the antagonist of the game.
So I think we're going to probably have to agree to disagree on this one.
Can I just also roll in one quick little thing? I think I'm in the boat of ENTJ now, only because I'm looking at the website and Steve Jobs is an ENTJ. And there's something about Steve Jobs that makes me think of Byakuya. Did we feel that?
Yeah, I mean, that's fair because ENTJ is the commander, and that would make a lot of sense for him, I think. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting.
So that wraps up the Myers-Briggs for the characters from the first game. We hope you enjoyed, and we can't wait to hear your thoughts. But before we wrap up the episode for today, we have a nice round of Bed, Wed, Behead, and we are going to be doing the characters that are most like us based on our discussion. So for me, unfortunately, we didn't end up with any ENFJs, but we're going to go with Hina. For Caroline, we've got Sakura, and for Maddie, we've got Kyoko. So Hina, Sakura, Kyoko. And whoever's ready can get going. It's really tough this round because Hina and Sakura are both real gems.
And I
all
like
all three of them. They're my girls
too. Like there's not a bad option, I don't think. Which is
Okay, I think I'm ready. I think that I would wed Kyoko. She's kind of got that enigma factor, and I would love to just delve into that for life. I would probably bed Sakura, which is a surprise because I know in a past episode I said that I would behead her, but Hina is not my type more than Sakura is not my type. Yeah, I think Hina's just a little too bubbly for me. Like, I love a good joyful person, but I think I just want something a little bit more realistic.
I think I would marry Hina because we are both very driven by what we've chosen for our paths in life. And I really need a partner who will work for a relationship, but also understand that that is what is ultimately the priority. And I think we'd both be in that boat, but we would do it together. And we don't necessarily like the same things, but we support each other. You know what I mean? And so I think that dynamic out of all of them would probably work the best for me, in my opinion. I would bed Kyoko. She is beautiful. And yeah, that's all. And I'm sorry, Sakura, I would behead you. I just think we're too similar to be married. And since I'm similar to Sakura, apparently it means that I could marry Hina. Just going to throw that out there.
This one is so hard for me because all three of these characters, they're my girls and I love them. God, this is hard. Okay, don't hate me for this answer, but I think I would wed Kyoko just because I love her so much. Like, I love her. She's my favorite character in this game, and I'm in love with her. I just love her. I think I would bed Hina and behead Sakura. And before you get totally upset with me, because I love Sakura so much, but my reasoning behind this is because Sakura would not want to live instead of Hina. Like, Sakura would die for Hina. Like, she clearly died for, like, everyone else. And I don't think that she would be okay with getting chosen to live over Hina. Like, that's literally my only reasoning for that. And I love her so much. And it's awful, like an awful choice to make. But I think that she would be like, there's no way you're killing one of these other two. Like, I'm gonna give my life for them. Like, literally for that reason, I think I would make that choice.
All right. Well, that wraps things up for us. Thank you so much for listening. We hope that you will share this podcast with all of your Danganronpa fans and friends and family. If you want more Danganronpa content, please check us out on Facebook. We have a page you can like and a special page you can be added into if you'd like even more content. We will be posting our Myers-Briggs tables from this episode on our Facebook, and we hope you'll check them out. Leave your comments, leave your questions. And we also have an Amino Danganronpa account, so check us out at Ultra Hope Girls Pod. We can't wait to see you there and get to know you guys. And I think that wraps things up. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.